All right. We're gonna do a quick short of I'm telling God about this coffee house, where we're talking about, is it a part of the church ministry? Is it a ministry? Let's get this. Let's get down to the brass tacks here. Is it a ministry for the coffee house in the church's lobby to be considered a ministry? Is it a coffee house ministry? Leave your comments in the comment section, because we're very interested.
Ministry, is that where? Okay.
I don't know. So there's quite the debate amongst our group of friends in the past day or two, where there was the mention of a cafe inside of a church being considered a ministry. Now, there was some disagreement. So the stance that I will play the devil's advocate, the stance was that, well, it could definitely be a ministry. It's, serving people, and therefore that's what, ministry means, is service, right? Now, Tim took a little bit of a different approach, right?
Well, here's the thing. I don't object to like amenities and things and coffee shops or whatever at churches. Ministry. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And I guess on some level, I'll allow for the idea that that obviously everything you do as a Christian, especially if it's attached to a church, should be pervaded by a sense of ministry and done in a way that's pleasing to God and demonstrates the virtues to, especially obviously the unchurched. The issue I take with the church focus on things like amenities, like, you're going to have your coffee shops, you're going to have all this stuff. And in particular, equating those things with ministry broadly, is that at best, you're talking about a second tier of ministry, right? It's not a pursuit of the core mission of the church. It's not. Like, flat out. We know, expressly from Scripture what the core mission of the church is.
It's getting those caramel macchiatos before the service.
By putting everything under this umbrella of ministry, what's really happening, and what you actually see happening in many modern churches, is saying, oh, well, because everything is ministry, I can deprioritize our actual purpose and start focusing on these other things that are just kind of fun and comfy that we really like doing. And that's why I object to the defense of some of these, I'd say, frivolities.
You're being for once, like, you're being far kinder than I would say. Like, here's what I would.
Yes.
Listen.
Do it.
Way kinder than I am. What is the mission of the church? The mission of the church is to equip the saints for the work of the kingdom. Where's that money coming from? Who's buying that coffee? Like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not saying, like, I'll give you a perfect example. Like, I won't say it's a perfect example. Look, you're going to build a coffee house, have a $3,000 La Marzocco espresso machine, Mazzer grinder, like the whole, like, I've seen some elaborate setups in churches for coffee, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it is often presented under the guise of like, oh, this is our ministry, it's this. But what it is, it always comes down to the same thing. Consumerism. It's plain and simple.
Right. Like,
what are we here for? I'm not saying that we shouldn't do things that we do for the Lord should not be exceptional, but like, it's all problems of scale. So you're going to get you're going to get a full-blown coffee shop. Okay. So now you're going to staff it. Now you're going to payroll it. Now you're going to pay for maintenance. Now you're going to do all these other things. Like, your overhead for people to have coffee going into service, which they can buy from any other organization, which arguably is better because now you're increasing Christian presence in the community on that day of the week, right? So now you're no longer doing that.
The reality is, how many of those people just flat out wouldn't show up to the service if they couldn't get their coffee at the church? That's what they're appealing to, the very loosely attached attendees. This isn't a ministry thing. Yeah. It's an amenity to attract people for the sake of the institution.
Like your country club. That's it. Yeah. You're trying to retain.
There's also a distinction, I think, that needs to be made to give a little bit of grace to some of these, ministry, the food ministry, the coffee cafe ministry, the skate park ministry, or whatever it is. They're more like outreaches, and that's not how we would define church. Like, when we talk about church,
when you
it's for
say
the equipping
Josh,
of the saints.
That's what I'm saying, my guy. That's what I'm saying. But that's the problem. The friggin' church doesn't know what the church is. Like, we got this hangover, this 90s seeker-sensitive hangover of what church is, and and everyone's like, and even in our previous video when I got all animated about like church size and whatnot, like, there's a reason that I feel that way. It's because you can't tell me that if the goal is a there's two models: Forge, heat directed in, and Lighthouse, heat directed out. If you're a lighthouse, you're a ministry.
Those things up.
They're not the same thing. The reason you're getting them wrong is because you're not reading the Bible right? And
so you're
the
justifying
church, the body.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're justifying those things that are outreach, but you're applying them internally to yourself.
Correct.
No, this is my outreach
you benefit
coffee.
from.
Why are your members drinking it? Like,
right. It's weird that only 60 that of all the outreach. Oh, we're only bringing in 10% new people every year. Every soul matters, though. But like 90% of the time, 75% of the church enjoys those benefits. Like
yes, right. You know, if I could shout out to pastoral ministries teacher Rod Dempsey, man.
Let's go, Rod Dempsey.
One of the awesome like side comments I think that he made in one of the classes, and now just from my memory might be wrong, but I just remember him saying like, yeah, so there's all these models within churches, and you know, it's almost like, you know, some of these churches have like better programs than other churches, and that's how we make decisions on churches is, oh, they got a better coffee ministry. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, how is that become? It's consumerism, right? It's like we put so much money towards. This is one thing that Frank Viola really hammered on in his book Pagan Christianity, which to some definitions is a little bit over the top. However, one of the things that I think he really manages to express well is a church is not a building. Why put a group of community of Christians in millions of dollars of debt over 30 years to slowly pay off this and then, you know, create other programs and put money towards other places other than the working of the church?
And this is why someone got mad at me. No, someone got mad at me about this. And I because I called the church, like someone thought I was being mean when I said, you know, when I used air quotes and I was talking about, you know, like Gospel Community Church or one of these other churches. I used them as an example. When I was
you used like scare quotes as a church?
Yeah, and I was like, their church, right? And what I meant by that is like, when I say that your church is a ministry, I'm not belittling that. That's what I'm saying is like, that organization, that corporation is doing the work of the kingdom of God. It is not doing at the same level. I'm not saying this about GCC. I'm saying this about churches at large, but the majority of these large churches. What they are not doing is it's disproportionate. This is a building that says it labels and identifies as a church, but what it does 80% of the time is outreach, and what it should be doing 80% of the time is internal development. And that's
outreach directed inward. It's like, no, we need to do all these outreach activities directed at people inside the
ourselves.
Church.
Right. Come and join so we can then minister to you in that way. And it's like, okay.
I think a great example of where the church was being the church was my experience in Maryland with, that was Grace Community Church.
Mitchell Lee, shout out.
And Mitchell, awesome.
Great pastor.
They would have, and the way that this was done, I think it was brilliant. He had these classes that you could sign up for, and one of the classes was biblical interpretation. And I'm thinking, this sounds awesome. I love reading the Bible and I love to try to interpret it, you know. And he took us through a, you know, seminary light style class of discourse analysis of how to break down passages, you know, separate the text from, you know, independent clauses to dependent clauses, and what is the meaning, and how do we do a word study, and how do we look back in the Old Testament,
maybe,
and equipping the saints. And you walk out, and what's beautiful about that is I walk, and every sermon became alive for me that day after, because I'm like seeing, I'm like, oh, you did this.
I see how you got that.
I see how you got there. And the funny thing was there was like pages upon pages upon pages of notes that we would have for a single passage that we were studying. But when he's preaching, he maybe mentions one or two of the things, but what those pages and pages of study do is they inform the application, the illustration, the aspects of how do we apply it to our life. That because nobody in the congregation is gonna give two shakes or two 2 cents.
The pastor's not
worth
trying to prove
you know,
his interpretation in
Right.
the context
Right.
of a
No.
sermon. He has the benefit of the ordination and the authority and the accountability of his scholastic and intellectual peers, right?
Yep.
So that's why the condemnation for preachers is so great, because they are invested with that trust, and they're
You
not
don't have to
So when they
proving
screw
it,
up,
right?
yeah. But
And so
here's the
where
point.
the
So grace
quipping,
is,
I think, really is.
yeah.
Is
So
what,
that's a great example of a church that does that well. Like, you know, they're a big church. Now, I still disagree. Like, I had this conversation today. I was at Dachau, the concentration camp, doing a training today, and I'm walking through Dachau, you know, with another chaplain, and we're
Been pronouncing
talking.
that wrong
and,
forever.
yeah, I know, right? But he's like, he says, you know, he was asking me, he's like, you know, do you think you'd go into, like, you know, pastoral ministry when you get out of the army? And I said, you know, I don't know. I said, if I ever did, I said, I think I would like to, but what I would want to do is, I think I would either want to, it wouldn't happen until I was going to be living in a place for an extended period of time. And like, if I settled down, if God has that in the cards for me. And I said, and it would be hyper locally based. Like, you have to live near here, like be a part of this, you know, community. And I would cap it at the very high end at 150 people, like because you know, like I look at Dunbar's number, I look at Jesus's model, you know, 12 times 12. If I pick 12 people and I disciple those 12 people, and those 12 people have 12 people below them, that's the maximum effective, like, accountability range that I can manage.
Right. Was it Dunbar? Was he the one who was like, that's the number
Primates.
of people where you can... Yeah, but I think the psychology of it was, that's the number of people where everybody can keep track of both their own relationships and
Yes.
everybody else's relationships with each other. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Dunbar, if I remember this right, he, you know, primatologist, he basically already socialized. He looked at the part of the brain in primates that's responsible for, like, social behavior, and he extrapolated. So he looked at, like, chimps and, like, apes, and then he extrapolated up to humans. And what he looked at when he looked at humans was the number for the ideal social strata of, like, a community is about 150 people, based on what our brains can functionally handle. And what's ironic is he came to that by looking at brain size, but the number is 12 times 12, which is what Jesus did. Like, so it's referenced in, like, how we accomplish that. And I think that if in a perfect world, like, that's what you would want to have is, I live around these people, and these are the people that I'm discipling. I see them. I go to the stores, but our world isn't structured that way. So that's why I give some grace to the structure of churches, because our whole society has moved into the big box of everything. There's no such thing as mom and pop anymore. There's Applebee's, Ruby Tuesdays, Buffalo Wild Wings, Walmart, Sam's Club, Shell, Tesco, not even Tesco, I don't even know what the other gas stations are, and Starbucks. Like, go anywhere in the country and those are your options. And like, that's kind of how the church has become too. People live separate, they don't talk to their neighbors, community systems and stuff don't exist. And that's why I keep looking at this, like, fourth turning stuff, and I'm looking at where things are going, and I'm like, it's not sustainable. I don't know if I want to think about the future of this model, because I frankly do not think that our society can continue to exist the way that it has into the future in any measurable distance that's worth planning for. So I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, I'm just going to wait for the season to change.
I feel like
I'm
what
gonna
you're
start
saying
from there.
I feel like what you're saying is that the church is actually reflecting the model of the society that we live in the American environment. So what is going to have to change, or maybe ask this question.
Dude, this is too much
different
depth
before?
for our audience engagement short.
I guess we were talking about, is a coffee house
moved
a ministry within the church?
We were doing a whole...
We've moved on. It's all the same
Next
thing.
week's
It's
I
the
ruined
same
the
thing.
segment.
No,
Oh my gosh.
No, you'll just have to edit it down, because that, like, 5-7 minute was...
We'll cut that out. We'll take the gold from it. But it's like,
what was
this
happening?
is good stuff.
What was happening in society, in American society, before, when it was healthier, when you did have these smaller types churches?
First turning. It was post craziness.
portion?
The first Great Awakening, all of the Great
generation?
Awakenings in our country came directly after a fourth turning.
So we should be coming up
We're
to
coming
a great
into
awakening.
it. That's why I'm saying I'm not even wasting. I'm not wasting my energy.
There's
It goes
evidence
all
of
the
it
way
right
back.
now. You
Yes.
got Russell Brand Jordan
Yes.
Peterson, who hasn't made his
Uncle
profession
Joe,
of faith.
come on, Uncle Joe.
Yeah, no,
Let's
Joe
go.
Rogan, man. Oh,
Jordan
it's
Peterson
coming.
says
It's
you're coming. I believe.
Which
I
is
pray for
funny
you every
too.
day.
It's like
Every day, Uncle Joe.
Joe Rogan or
Holding
Jordan
out hope, my
Peterson
guy.
is going to tell Joe Rogan that he's basically embraced it.
Okay,
Yeah, Jordan
I don't
Peterson
have this
doesn't
on good authority.
The courage to say it yet.
Here's what I Sean Ryan did a really great job. He got more out of Jordan Peterson than anybody else has in trying to like put the screws to him to make a decision. Here's the question
Without
that has
pressing
to
him
get
too
asked.
hard to where he
Here's
got
what I would
defensive.
ask Jordan Peterson. So Jordan, if you hear this, when are you getting baptized? I don't need any exegetical explanation. I don't need any philosophical, roundaboutness. Do you believe Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life? No one comes to the Father except through him. That's what you said on Sean Ryan's show. So
Is it?
If
Is
so,
it what he said?
it's what he said. And
Hold
he says,
on.
but,
Okay,
but I
feel
also
like-
know
I
what
feel like this
he
is
said,
not
but I
fair
also
to the
know what
bet
that
here.
means. No.
This is not fair to the bet here.
But
you're
said-
you're stirring the pot like you're influencing the witness.
He said,
You're leading the witness.
Well, I don't want him
He
to go to
said,
hell. I mean,
do I believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life? Yes. And that nobody comes to the Father except through him? Yes. But I also know what that means. Okay. So if you know what that means, then you also know that obedience is kind of a requirement. And what is the Great Commission? Go and baptize. Be baptized. And even Jesus himself, what did he say? When John the Baptist said, I don't deserve to untie your sandals. You want me to baptize you? He said, let it be so for now. Why? To fulfill all righteousness. So, Jordan, my question to you, my friend, when are you getting baptized? That's all I want to know. And if you could
I would say-
conveniently do that before 2025, so I can take $100 off of my guys here, okay? That's the only question that anyone should be asking. Only question Jordan Peterson needs to be asked about Christianity from this day forward
When are you
is when you're getting baptized.
I agree.
I know I
think that's
object
fair.
to this
That's
bet,
fair.
and I just
that,
can't
that
put my
ultimately
finger
would
on
be,
why.
Yeah.
What's that?
But hey,
I said I know
We
I
have a
object
system.
to this bet, but I can't put my finger on why exactly.
So
it's
here's the
wrong.
thing,
Don't want
too,
Jordan
like,
to go to hell?
I don't know, man.
No, I don't want a horse trade on the eternal souls of people.
Look,
Let it be
I am
so for
not
now, to fulfill our
taking any ownership of that. I do not want Jordan Peterson to go to hell.
I want him to get
definitely- that is
saved.
the most
I want the guy to just come out and quit
Absolutely.
dancing around the issue.
Well,
What he
that's
doesn't
the thing.
understand is that obedience. There's a reason we do baptism, so we don't have to have conversations like this. Is he? Isn't he? I don't know. Do we see
But
the fruit of the
baptism
gospel in his life?
itself-
Get baptized, my guy.
Baptism itself is being like is now gimmicky. Like I feel like
It's not
the
gimmicky.
celebrity baptism now. It's almost like getting baptized and like
At a
some of them are
minimum.
like, are they really?
Listen, at a minimum, it's a public declaration
Christian,
of
or
faith.
is it?
At a minimum.
Yes. You know what? Kanye was baptized too. You know that I don't know. I don't know if it was genuine or not.
Hey,
Like that's the thing.
I got
don't
news
even
for
know
all
if
my
that's the
believers
standard.
out there.
Baptism does
Kanye
not
and you are the same.
grant salvation.
You're the same in the eyes of God. Let me just go ahead and put
That's
that out
right.
to you right now. From
That's
an
right.
eternal salvation standpoint, Kanye
Yep.
and you are no different. If you're morbidly obese and you're, living in sin in some other way of your life, and you're sitting there going like,
Can you
Kanye's
be
not a
morbidly obese
Christian?
and live in sin? Is that a?
Are those the same thing?
Maybe they are.
I'm just saying, if you're
I mean-
morbidly obese, I feel like it's challenging to get someone to live in sin with you. Is that not?
No,
just
that's not what I'm saying. Anyway. Oh my gosh. I can't hear
No,
you
living
over
in
the
sin
purity
is like
culture.
The Baptist euphemism for unmarried
Yeah,
people.
I know. That's why I
living
said I
together.
can't hear you over
Right.
the purity
Yes.
culture. Yeah, it's like your mouth is moving, but all I hear is I kiss Satan goodbye.
Oh gosh.
Cue jars of clay. Rain, rain on my face. Anyway, hasn't stopped raining for days.
Oh my god.
Nobody deserves to see this. Don't do this to them.